All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our weekly 30-minute webinar. My name is Dre Devots. I'm a systems engineer here at Verify, and I'll be your host for today's session. Today, we are joined by my good old buddy, Mike Stratton. How's it going today, Mike?
Good, sir. How are you?
Fantastic. Doing well over here. Thank you for asking. All right, today's session, we're going to be talking about Webex calling and how virtual lines and workspaces appear in Verify. Please note that these webinars are always recorded and posted within 24 hours, so you can review them at any time. Check out the webinars page at verify.com for all our past and upcoming sessions. You may see all these videos on our YouTube channel if that is easier for you as well. All right, let's get into the agenda today. We're going to start off with a quick overview of what Verify can do for you. Then we'll jump into the live demo where Mike will guide us through that Webex calling and virtual lines and workspace, how they appear in Verify. We'll pause for Q&A during the demo. If you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the chat. And then after Q&A, we will reward one lucky attendee with a $50 Amazon gift card. So hang around to see if you've won. Verify is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco Call Manager, Contact Center Express, Cube iOS, Webex Calling, Zoom Phone, and now MS Teams Collaboration. Deployable either on-prem or a hosted cloud solution, we provide industry-leading call reporting and analytics, as well as customizable dashboards and widgets. And also we have CUCM management modules like remote phone control, change management, and dial plan management. If you have any questions on any of these features, please contact us at support@verify.com or reach out to your account manager. And one more thing before we kick this off, for an additional fee, Verify does offer an enhanced consulting service to our customers. Verify's SE team engages with you on a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, report building, dashboard configuration, and system monitoring assistance. If this is a service that provides you with a dedicated Verify SE to do the heavy lifting, giving you a stress, hands-free off experience. For more information, please contact us or your account manager. We'd be glad to speak more in depth about pricing and terms about our enhanced consulting services or ECS. All right, into the wild we go. I'm going to hand things over to Mike.
Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us today. As Dre said, we're going to be talking about virtual lines and workspaces. I always want to call them workplaces, but the workspaces in Webex calling. So we've seen some of our customers in the wild, and we've kind of learned a few things that way people report on virtual lines and workspaces, and kind of seen some limitations. And so today we'll kind of go over just the how-tos and what the data looks like, and just some basic stuff. I won't get anything too in depth with like dashboards or reports. I just want to show you, how to pull that data, where to look, and then go from there. So I will start with the virtual lines. And if you don't know what they are, virtual lines, it's like a way to configure additional lines for Webex calling users without requiring like a additional license. I first started seeing virtual lines used for it's like a shared extension where kind of like what we used to see within call manager situations where you'd have like calls coming into a shared line. It would ring on multiple phones, and then whichever employee was available could pick up the call and speak with the person on the other line. I've also seen it as where we're just adding like a second or even third line. I had a customer where they were receiving calls into multiple hunk groups, and each hunk group was represented by a different shared line on a user's phone. So they were like taking calls from like 3+ hunk groups, so they would have 3 or 4 virtual lines on their phone. So again, we'll go over how they appear in the data, how to report on them, and then some of the limitations. Okay, so getting started. So calls to or from virtual lines are really easy to find, and they're the easiest way to do it. One, you can look up with the number, but the easiest way would be to search using the user type. So user type gives you, search for calling or call part user type. User type really it's a great field, especially when troubleshooting or like when you're looking at like cradle to grave data. It tells you what the number, like what the number is attached to, like what the device is. So like whether the call is coming from a hunt group, going to a hunt group, call queue, auto attendant, And now, we can also report on the calls coming to or from virtual lines using the user type. So in the user type field, you can either pick calling, called, or the combo calling or called party user type. And then towards the bottom, you'll see the virtual line user type. So you can select is virtual line. If you want to exclude virtual line calls, you can do is not if you click on the is. And then let me just, if you want, like in this case, if I just search for this would give me all data, for all virtual lines. But if you want to filter, I'll show you the data first before we go into that. I have some data from, not a lot of data, but we'll work with the few examples. So here is, let me change to ascending, some of our virtual line data. So I, back in July, placed a bunch of test calls while looking at the virtual lines, and let me actually send this to much better. Okay. So with the virtual lines, so the way that the data looks, or with using the calling party user type, this is bringing back everything. I had a couple of test lines set up in our sandbox, play some test calls, and that's what you see here. Really, when it comes to the data, I'll show you I pull the data out into a report file, make it a little easier to see. Let me make this look bigger. Okay, so if you can't see this, just go ahead and let us know in the chat, and I'll make it a little bit bigger. But when a call comes into a virtual line, really what we're seeing is the user type in this case will identify the user type as virtual line. So we can see these were all a bunch of inbound calls to a virtual line. I think I placed an outbound call too. It's a couple outbound calls here that came from a virtual line. So you can see, you can definitely filter on the direction of the call, or, outbound or inbound, by looking at the search criteria. And then from there, that's really it. The virtual line, the user type will tell us where it is. We will get the number associated to the virtual line. So if you're looking for a specific virtual line, 6565, you can filter on the user type or just throw in the extension. So there's different ways to do it. Let me pull in the right here. So if I just want to see 6565, it is just as simple as throwing the number in the report or in the search, and you'll see it that way. So here, calls coming to or from 6565 is the virtual line. But yeah, so really, so to identify the virtual lines, definitely lean on the user type. This, like I said before, the user type column or criteria is one of my favorite fields to use when looking at a report, because it's really easy to identify, what is this number or what is this user or name in the data. So looking at a couple samples here from the cradle to grave data, makes it a little bit smaller. Here. There's no MAC address. We can kind of restrict that. So we can see in the cradle to grave data, I was calling into an auto attendant. So in this case, here's the first leg. This is me calling from a different phone outside of the Webex sandbox. I called in, hit this number. I hit so here, when you see the calling party user type is attendant video, that is your auto attendant. So I called in, hit the auto attendant. I was there for 14 seconds, and then I manually dialed 6565 to be transferred to a virtual line that was called Mike and Victor virtual line. So I was testing this case, what a shared virtual line looks like in the CDR. The reason why I was testing this is because we kind of encountered a limitation of the virtual line. So when a call comes into a virtual line, we do not get any information in the CDR that tells us which user answered the call. So I think in this case, I was probably calling Victor, or Victor answered. No, actually, there's a zero duration. But myself or Victor, we could answer the call or not answer the call. But the called party name is always going to be the name of the virtual line as it appears in Control Hub. There isn't like, we could see, like within call manager data, we could look at like the device name or the user information to kind of identify who answered from the shared line. That information just isn't available in the Webex data. We get the extension and then we get the name. So if you have like a shared extension within Control Hub and within Webex Calling, and you have different, more than one person answering those calls, we don't have a way, based on what we're getting from Webex, to identify who exactly, is always answering the call. So so again, shared line, no way of knowing. All we're getting is just the name in the name as it appears in Control Hub in the calling name field in the Webex data. So like on an outbound call, right here, not that one, like this one right here, outbound call. You also see it here too, where the name is, it's not, you don't see my name or you don't see Victor's name. It's just the name of the virtual line. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the high level. That's it. So yeah, I mean, all these were just calls into the auto tenant. Really, you can ignore these as far as being related to the virtual line. But the key things to take away, like in this case, you can see called into the virtual, called into the auto attendant, and then this is the auto attendant. We can see by the calling party user type as auto attendant is delivering the call to the virtual line. 5 seconds of duration, so we can see someone picked up for a couple seconds. In this case, same thing, auto attendant delivered the call to the virtual line. There's that name again, and then the call duration was 3 minutes and 47 seconds. So yeah, when we're looking at virtual lines, the 2 easy ways to report on them would be the number if you're looking for a specific virtual line. Same thing as reporting on any other extension or anything else within Webex Calling. Or if you want to filter or either virtual lines either in or out, and you want to filter out them as a group or just identify them within the data, using that user type set the virtual line will be the best way to either remove them or include them within the call data. And then, I mean, on the reporting side, same thing. Building on a sample report, the calling or call party user type, or you can use the calling party user type if you want to see the calls placed from virtual lines, or the called party user type if you want to see calls into. And then the same stuff still applies. Like if you're just running a sample report. There won't be a whole lot of data in here though. Same thing. I mean, it's the same thing as any other report from the Webex calling side of things. We can get call counts, durations, basically everything. On the grouping side, right now we can group based on the calling party number or the name. So if you want to see again the name, so you see in this case, Mike and Victor virtual line, or if you want to group by the number, you can do so and then show total calls, originating, terminating calls. And then also, while troubleshooting and kind of playing around with the data, the one thing I noticed, and I've seen this on a couple different systems, is if you go in and modify the name of a virtual line in Control Hub, it still shows the old name in the Webex data. So like if you were to rename this virtual line from Mike and Victor virtual line to just Mike virtual line or just virtual line, from what I was seeing while doing test calls and everything else, we still see the old name. Like there's something hidden or like deep down in Webex's API where when we collect the call data, we're still getting the old name. So while also working with the customer and troubleshooting some virtual line issues, we found the only way to get the name to change in the data was to delete it and then just create a new one. And that's kind of, I don't know, moving on here, a couple more things. Scrolling down, looking at, so kind of covered, what it looks like with the shared virtual line. The other way we kind of see the virtual lines is when we have like multiple lines set up with users, either calls coming into a hunt group or calls coming into a call queue. They act the exact same way as any other user, or any other user device. So like in this case, my test call here, I called into the auto attendant, and then I dialed the hunt group number, which was 6,000. And then within our hunt group, we had a couple different SEs. Myself, Dre, and Jim were set up to ring. And then myself and Dre, we both had virtual lines assigned to our phones. We didn't pick up, but those virtual lines, they act like another user or just another entry when the call rings. So just like any other hunt group or call queue data within Webex Calling, we do get those, a record for each time a call is presented to one of the numbers. Again, we're getting the name of the virtual line, not the name of the agent or the person the call is presented to. So you can see me and Dre and Jim, and then our virtual lines here. Looks like Dre picked up that one. In this case, in this case down here, call was abandoned. You can see none of us picked up. And so, and again, yeah, either way, whether it's a call queue or a hunt group, you'll see the same activity and the same results in the data, where the virtual line kind of acts as its own entity. The number is always going to be there, and then the name will be, the name of the virtual line. So if you are giving, virtual lines as like a secondary or third line to a user, just be aware that whatever name you're giving them is how they'll show up in the CDR. And then, yeah, so on the reporting side, I mean, they work the same way as any DN or user in the report. You can create the reports around them. On the dashboard side, same thing as well. You can build, dashboards that look at virtual lines. It's the same thing as reporting on a number. Reporting here on a number, or if you want to see like all virtual lines, same thing. Just report on, calling or call party is user type is virtual line. Just a matter of how you want to present the data, but they're all there and available for the dashboards and widgets. All right, and I'll pause here real quick. Any questions on virtual lines?
Hey, Mike, right now I don't see anything in the chat. So if anybody has a question, please go ahead and type that into the chat for us real quick.
It's pretty straightforward. I don't think there'll be anything crazy. But if anyone has any questions, yeah, I mean, I can always stop and go back. But if not, I'll move on. Cool. All right. The second half of the reporting is reporting on workspaces. Now, workspaces is pretty much the exact same thing as virtual lines. Workspaces are like Webex's way of identifying like physical rooms, like a conference, a meeting room, a lobby, a break room. Within Control Hub, you can set them up and then assign phones or devices to them. So it's a way of identifying physical locations, and also a way to group devices and kind of give users a better way to report on these spaces and just identify how they're being used. How many calls coming in, going out, that kind of stuff. So same thing with workspaces as it was virtual lines. There's two easy ways to identify them. Going back to the user type criteria, we do have a user type for those, and that comes from Webex. The user type is place. So what I just passed, place. So when you see place in a report, that is a expand this. Place is a workspace. So you can see here, sample clash. I'll go back to my, this might be easier to read. Here's my sequence. So here's me. I place a test call, called into the auto attendant. I was there for 25 seconds. It goes to what I had set up called small conference room 1. Here's my phone, or my number. There's my user type of place. 0 seconds, so no one answered. Therefore, there's no MAC address in the data. So it was kind of like an abandoned call. Second call, I called in, same thing, auto attendance. There is duration, and there's duration here too. Then again, I was in the auto attendant. I made my selection, went to 7700, main conference room this time instead of small conference room, place again. And then because it's a physical phone, and that's the phone that answered, I can see I actually get the MAC address of the phone, and then you can see how long I was connected to that phone for. This record here, opposite direction, I placed a test call from 7700, which is a phone in the main conference room workspace. Calling party user type is place, same MAC address as the previous call, and then I dialed my extension at 5022. So same exact kind of logic in the reports as what Webex gives us for virtual lines. Calling party user is going to identify what the call is coming from or what the call is going to, and then the number associated to the workspace will appear in either the calling party number or called party number fields. So on the reporting side, I mean, pretty much everything I just explained was in my sample report, but we can, there's really nothing to kind of go over. Same thing. Yeah, same. I mean, really it's the same thing, just an export from this data. The big thing is, looking at that user type to kind of tell you what the call is coming to or from, the numbers here, and then everything else there. So yeah, I mean, pretty straightforward. They report the same way when searching for them. If you want to exclude them or include them, either do it by the number or the user type. Same thing with virtual lines. And the same logic applies on the reporting side. Total calls, basically everything you report on for any user or anything else, it's here. Same thing though. The one difference is the called party name or the calling party name will be the name of the workspace. However, if you have multiple devices associated to the workspace, you can tell which device picked up the call based on either the called party, or in this case, in this record down here, look at the calling party device MAC address. So the MAC address of the phone, if it's a physical actual phone that's linked up to Webex, then you can see which phone answered the call, because it'll appear in the data. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of quicker than Virtual Lines. I think everything we kind of covered in Virtual Lines also applies to workspaces. Same thing with dashboards and reports. I mean, everything else acts the same. You can build individual dashboards on a single workspace to see, in this case, total call count answered or abandoned count. I mean, really everything works the same. It's just, how you want to filter on it. You want to filter on, one or more numbers, or the user type will, get you there. Yeah, that's kind of it. It's at a high level. Dre, I'll kick it back to you unless there's any other questions on anything Webex related, really. I mean, workspaces, virtual lines.
Yeah, no questions have come through. I think seems pretty straightforward.
Perfect.
Awesome. Great job, Mike. So I want to thank everybody for stopping by today and checking out our webinar. Don't forget, next week, we've got Trey and Victor, and they're going to demonstrate how easy it is to migrate your on-prem CUCM reporting to the Verify Cloud. So same time next week. You don't want to miss that one. So thank you, everybody, again. Thank you, Mike, and I hope everybody has a great day.